Hello, this is Tim Roth from Infor's new Product Configuration Management Division, PCM. Today I'm going to introduce our PCM solution to you by stepping through the sales process from beginning to end, creating a quote, configuring a product, and ultimately placing the order. I'm going to do this from a flow process rather than a strictly functional process so you can see the tool's primary power, and in subsequent videos I will dive deeper into more detailed functions such as versioning, price modifications, proposal generation, etc. So keep an eye out for those helpful videos if you're seeking additional information. But for this session I have three basic goals, and that is to introduce our tool, give it some context for you, and then show it to you live. So let me start off with a slide here that just shows the centrality of our configurator to an enterprise configuration solution. Our configurator sits in the middle of a process that goes both to the front end through the sales portal, which is where I'm going to demonstrate most of my demonstration today, and the back end, which is the ERP system, where the data from a configuration can be easily passed. The configurator also interfaces with other tools for outputs for document automation or 2D and 3D CAD designs. Today I'm going to go into the sales portal as a dealership, pretending like I am, say, a rep, coming in to the sales portal through the web, using the configurator to configure a viable product, watching that interface back and forth here, and then placing the order that's going to push it back to the ERP system. In future videos we'll show some of the outputs, we'll show some of the interfaces in more details, but that's the context for this demo today. So let's see it in action. If I go to my web browser, this is where I would access my sales portal. It is a web-based tool. I'm using Internet Explorer in this case, and when I go to this link it prompts me for a username and password. And by entering that information, I get into the sales portal and I am a known quantity. It knows who I am, so it can give me a certain user experience based upon which dealership I'm coming in from, or whether I'm an internal or an external rep, for example. The dashboard of the sales portal is designed to be an easy single-click interface where if I click on these individual icons, I get to areas where I can manage my quotes, view my orders, organize my customers, etc., including things that you may want to add in there such as website links, training videos, and other such information. It's a single-click interface. If I click on the quotes icon, I can see a list of the quotes that I've created in the past. If I click again on my home icon, I go right back to my dashboard. To actually start creating a new quote, the single click is on this plus symbol right here, that if I click on that, it's going to start the process of beginning a new quote. I, as the dealership, may have a list of customers that I can pick from that I'm making this quote for, and I can choose one of those customers off the list, and then I can come down here and choose the item that I'm trying to quote for this customer. If I click on this drop-down list, I can see many different items that we have in our demo environment. You, as the manufacturer, could also put many items in here presentable for the dealers. And I'm going to go in here and in this case configure a door. If I type the word door, it filters my list down to show me all the items that have the word door in it, including our basic door. I'm going to click that. Once that's been selected, it now knows certain properties of this item and presents them to me, such as maybe the wood species that this door is made out of, or the stain color that I wish to stain this door. These fields that have immediately popped up are called our shortcut fields, that if I'm very, very familiar with this product as the dealer, I can go in here and very quickly make those entries and add them as line items to my quote. Instead, I'm going to go through the configuration process manually, since this is the first time we're seeing this product, by clicking this configure button in the lower left corner. Launching the configurator comes up with a screen that overlays in front of the quote to let you know you're still in the quoting process, but the configurator has now temporarily come to the forefront. The configurator is designed as a split screen where on the left side we're going to see a series of questions and answers, and on the right side is going to be feedback to me in the form of, say, graphics or price lists or PDF documents or whatnot. As I go through and answer certain questions, such as the first question, what's the wood species that I want to make this door from, I can choose these options and I'll get more questions presented to me based upon answers that I've given. I chose cherry wood, I get a certain stain color that's associated with that cherry wood, such as cider and paprika. If I choose a different wood, such as hickory, I may get different stain colors. If I go back to cherry, I can see here are my stains again. I'm going to choose the cider stain. I get a different picture on the right side showing me a plank of what the cider stained cherry wood would look like. If I change to the paprika stain, it'll change to show the plank a little different. So the feedback on the right is dynamic based upon the answers I've given on the left, as well as other answers were dynamic based upon previous answers. So the construction section comes up and says, what profile do you want to put on this wood door? And here's a drop-down example. If I choose the drop-down, I have different choices here, or a little bit of help. If I click this, I can see those choices represented graphically. Again, everything to assist the user in making the proper choices. I go down to the next field, raised panel, defaults in for me. I can choose the drop-down there, which would show raised panel or flat panel are my choices. And again, a little help if I wish to see it. I'll keep it on raised panel. And now I have an option for a checkbox. Do I want exterior treatment on my door? I'll choose that. Breaks me to a new tab from the main options to the dimensions, defaults in several values for me, and because those values have been defaulted in, I now get a drawing on the right side of what my door is going to start looking like. Here is my door that's defaulted in at 30 inches by 80 inches, which is represented at 30 by 80. We don't see it on the screen right now because I haven't checkmarked my dimensions, but when I do that, I'll see that this is indeed a 30 by 80 door, parametrically accurate to the dimensions that have been entered in for me. I can change these, that if I change this door width from 30 inches to say 36 inches, you'll see my drawing render now as a 36-inch wide sketch. This is an example of our dynamic 2D generation capabilities. Another example of that is if I choose my door style from a square panel square top to say an arch panel square top, you'll see it gives me an arched panel. So the door is represented accurately to the dimensions and answers that I've given on the left. As I continue through, I can see I can ask for some hinges. We'll see another example of this parametric rendering. If I choose some hinges, I'll select that with a checkbox. It takes away my drawing temporarily because it needs to know how many hinges I want. And if I choose from my drop-down 3 hinges, it does a little math to know where those 3 hinges would fit on that door and adds them in my drawing. If I change to say a 4-hinge door, it'll redo the math for 4 hinges and show me 4 hinges on my door. I have a price up here of $446 for my door at this point. If I click details next to that word price, I can see that my price is comprised of a base price of $226 plus an upcharge for the cherry wood, a little bit of upcharge for my style, my exterior treatment, and my 4 hinges, resulting in my $446. Those details are shown as part of the information, visualization, and links section. If I go back to my image, I can see that at any time. I can go back to my details, and I also can see a summary of all the answers I've given so far to configure this door. Once I'm satisfied with my answers and I click my Finish button, it brings me back to a line item in my quote. At this point, I can see my price has been brought back for me. I can see my image has been brought back, which can be viewed at any time. There are many ways I can go in and manipulate this quote, manipulate this pricing, use these shortcuts, but we'll save those for future videos. At this point, if I'm satisfied that this is the product I want, I'm going to place this as an order. I'm going to give this quote a name, which we'll call Cherry 1, since I used cherry wood, and we're going to click Place Order. Once I click Place Order, it will prompt me one more time for, are we sure this is our customer information, our shipping information, our payment information, etc. Once I'm satisfied, I click Place Order. It will come back to me with an order number. It has sent this information back to my ERP system. I click OK to confirm, and I find myself back looking at my list of quotes. Hartford Builders, my Cherry 1 quote, has been ordered. If I go back home and look at my orders, here is my Cherry 1 order now in a submitted status. I take it back to my dashboard, and I'm ready to begin my next quote. I know I went through that very quickly. That is the flow process from login to placement. Please look for future videos in which we will talk about all the details behind the scenes.